What's good, y'all? Welcome back to Reek Knows Hoops. I'm your host, Tyreek, and we got a Game 7 to talk about. So let's get into it, man. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you are new. It's a channel where we talk about NBA basketball, so if you love hoops, this is the place for you. And in the series where neither home team won in the first six, that streak ended in Game 7 as the LA Clippers were able to pull this one out against the Dallas Mavericks, man. And I got to give a lot of credit to the Clippers for this game, man. And really this series for getting back into it because their backs was against the wall, trailing 0-2, trailing by almost 20 points early in that third game in Dallas. And they were able to, shift the series in a wild series where neither home team was able to win a game in the first six. They were able to break that streak and win Game 7. But we're going to get to the Mavs and what maybe could have changed in this game or what was the root of this loss for them. But you got to give credit where it's due, man. The Clippers won this game. They won this game. They were in control of this game most of the way. And I got to give a lot of credit to the top two guys, the stars. You got to give credit where it is due. Kawhi Leonard, in Game 6, he took over. He took over in Game 6. He said, I'm not going home unless it's for a Game 7. And he had 45 in that Game 6, really took over, took command of that game. And in this game, he did a lot of the same, but in different ways, man. He was playmaking, had 9 assists. He was playing amazing defense. He was rebounding the ball, saving possessions, getting offensive rebounds, 10 rebounds on the game. And then his 28 points. At one point, he only had like 20 early in the fourth quarter, but you could just tell he had left his mark on this game. His impact was tremendous on both sides of the floor. Second half, he was playing tremendous defense on Luka Doncic. He was not allowing him to get those switches that he was getting in the first half, which is why Luka had such a great first half. And Kawhi was taking the challenge on both sides of the floor, and I really loved the game that he had. Very impactful. That's what you like to see from your best player, from a top 5 type player in this league. On the biggest stage in the biggest game of the series, in the Game 7, you want your best player to be the best player on the team and be the best player on the floor. And he showed that for the most part, even though Luka was sensational. But for a lot of stretches in this game, Kawhi Leonard was the best player on the floor. And Paul George had a very good game. His shooting numbers aren't going to do his impact justice. I think he was only 5 for 15, but he finished with 22 points. He finished with 10 assists. He was also playing really good defense too. And the 10 assists was big, man. His playmaking, especially early on, was very key in this game. And alongside those two, the supporting cast was as great as you could ask for a Game 7. They were as good as you can ask for a Game 7. And I think that's why this game was so high scoring, because a lot of times you can't rely on multiple role players to have a good Game 7. Like, you always get that game sometimes. Like, you might get a Mike Miller type Game 7 from somebody where somebody hits 6 or 7 threes. Or you might get a Kelly Olynyk game where, somebody comes off the bench and has 25 points. But you don't expect Terrence Mann to be one of the best players on the floor in the first half. And then fast forward into, Marcus Morris, who had early foul trouble, hit 7 threes in this game, ends the game with 23 points. Nicholas Batum doing a little bit of everything, a little bit of playmaking, playing great defense, playing the small ball 5, hitting some shots. And then, Reggie Jackson, who's been the most exceptional role player that the Clippers could have asked for all series, really been their third best player on the court pretty much all the time. He was very impactful, especially down the stretch, hitting 2 big 3-pointers. And then Luke Kennard, who has been getting probably as many DNPs as he's making millions this season, and he's making $64 million on his contract. But he's had a lot of DNPs too this season in this playoff series, and he comes out and has 11 big points off the bench. That's the kind of unexpected stuff that tends to happen in Game 7 sometimes. And shout out to him, because he has not got consistent playing time all year long. Hasn't got consistent playing time all series long. And he comes into a Game 7, has 11 points off the bench, hit some big 3-pointers in that third quarter, which helped open up the floodgates and help the Clippers get out to a 20-point lead. So big shout out to all those guys for being ready in the Game 7 and, really helping this Clipper team get this victory. Big shout out to Ty Lue for, trusting Reggie Jackson instead of Rondo, who did not have a good game, or Pat Bev, who did not have a good series. For trusting Terrence Mann to be one of the first guys off the bench, for trusting Luke Kennard, who has not played consistently all year long, in the Game 7, like, space the floor, we need you to hit some big shots. And he did that. Big shout out. And also the decision to go super small ball, even when Dallas countered by going super big, by, inserting Bobby into the starting lineup and still keeping Porzingis at the 4. Like, big shout out to Ty Lue. I got to give him a lot of credit here because I was calling for his head after game 2. But he made some big adjustments. And in that third quarter, they came out very flat to start, and Dallas got a 5-point lead, and it looked like it could be a scary time because guys for Dallas were starting to hit shots. Finney Smith was starting to hit shots. Luka was starting to, heat up again, and Tim Hardaway Jr. was hitting shots too, but they were able to weather the storm, and that's when the floodgates opened, and the Clippers did not look back from there. Big shout out to them for getting this victory, the mental toughness to be able to pull this series out after the way it started and just the way that the series has been going. This game could have easily got out of hand, but the Clippers were mentally tougher than the Mavs. I think that's really what it is, and their role players played better than the Mavs role players did. Like we mentioned, Luka was sensational. 46 points, I think, is the second most ever in a Game 7. He had, I think, 14 assists, is like ridiculous stat line, but it was a tale of two halves because he wasn't as good in that second half. And I mentioned Kawhi Leonard's impact on the defensive side. That's the main reason why. And Luka, he looked a little fatigued in the second half, and that's because he was asked to do everything in this game. Like, he's been asked to do almost everything in this series. But when you have a guy off your bench that can help relieve that pressure just a little bit, it helps. But it doesn't help when that guy only plays 3 minutes in the Game 7 until the fourth quarter. And the guy, I'm talking about Jalen Brunson. I don't understand that decision by Rick Carlisle. Rick Carlisle is a championship coach. He's a very great coach in this league, one of the best. He's been coaching the Mavs for as long as I can remember, but that's one decision that I really don't agree with. I had to look and see if Jalen Brunson was hurt. I didn't even know that he was only – I thought he was out of the game or something because he wasn't on the floor. And not only was he not on the floor, but the guy that was on the floor for him was Trey Burke, and it's not a slight at Trey Burke at all because I think Trey Burke's a really good player. He did not play good today, but I love Trey Burke. I have a lot of respect for Trey Burke. But he was on the court in the Game 7 where he has not played that much in this series at all. And that was a weird decision to me, if you ask me. I don't agree with that decision from Rick Carlisle. That's asking a lot out of Trey Burke to play the Jalen Brunson role when he has not played consistently in this series at all and really has not found consistent minutes a lot, down the stretch of the season. So you have a guy that's a 6 Man of the Year candidate, your second best playmaker on your roster, and he only plays 3 minutes heading into the fourth quarter. Doesn't allow him to get any kind of rhythm. And you're asking Luka to essentially do everything. And Luka played 45 minutes. And Luka was asked to do everything. And he looked gassed by the end. He looked gassed. I mean, I don't know if that changes the outcome of this game because Dallas still cannot shoot the 3-ball well. They only hit 10 threes in this game. And I don't know if that changes much, but it could help some. But like we mentioned, the Clippers role players playing exceptionally well. Dallas's did not. I think that's as bluntly honest as I can say that Dallas's role players did not play that good. Tim Hardaway Jr., who's been lights out for most of this series, picked a bad day to struggle. He picked a very bad day to struggle. He had a little ankle tweak early in the game. It looked kind of dangerous the way, because it was like a non-contact injury, but he was able to come back into the game, but he never really found any type of rhythm for a consistent stretch. Dorian Finney-Smith's the only one who shot the 3-ball well. He hit 4 of them, but if Finney-Smith is your best 3-point shooter, it's probably going to be a rough day. And it was a rough day offensively for the Mavs. I mentioned Jalen Brunson not playing. Trey Burke really struggled in his position. Porzingis, his stat line looked okay. He had 16 points. He had 11 rebounds. That's the most, I don't know why my camera is shaking, but that's some of the most least impactful 16 points and 11 rebounds that I've seen. And if that's your highest paid player on the roster, that is supposed to be your number 2. And he just didn't show any type of number 2 capabilities. And some guys just aren't number 2s. He'll probably be a great number 3 for this team, but they don't have a number 2. And you're expecting Porzingis, since he's getting max money, to play somewhat like a max player, and he didn't do that. He didn't really impact the game at all. You could argue Boban was more impactful than Porzingis was in this game. Porzingis didn't hit a 3-pointer in this game. Like, just so much went wrong for the Mavs, and this was the worst time for it to happen, the worst time for them to shoot the ball so poorly from downtown. And, credit the Clippers for capitalizing on this opportunity. And like I said, man, them role players, they deserve all of their flowers. Ty Lue deserves a lot of credit for having the guts to make the decisions, like to not play Rondo late in the game, to not play Pat Bev really at all, the second half of this series. Decision to go super small ball. You got to give Ty Lue a lot of credit. And he outcoached Rick Carlisle on this day, man. Big shout out to the Clippers. They'll be matched up against the Utah Jazz in the next round. That should be a fun series. Let's go over to the East and talk about Philly and Atlanta game 1. I turned on this game late in the first half, and I was seeing that Embiid was the first thing I seen was a notification that Embiid was playing. So I'm like, okay. So I turned the game on, and it's a 20-point game, and the Hawks are winning. And I'm like, I was kind of shocked. And then I seen Trae Young was being guarded by Danny Green most of the first half. That's what Twitter pretty much told me. And he was getting baked. He was getting cooked. He was toast. He was bad. He was bad, to say the least, defensively. But Trae Young, he's going to get his. And they put him in a lot of pick and rolls to get downhill. And once he gets downhill, it's either a floater or it's a lob. And he often makes the right decision, and he makes the most of those opportunities. And then third quarter, I don't know why Doc Rivers decided to put Danny Green on Trae to start the game. Maybe it's not to burn out Ben Simmons, during this series, but they put Ben Simmons on Trae Young to start the third quarter. He's playing great defense, and then gets in foul trouble. Trae Young's great at drawing fouls, and he gets Ben Simmons in foul trouble, so that slowed that down. But Trae Young didn't really go off in the second half, but other guys were hitting shots, and he was making the right plays. He was making the right reads. Other guys were hitting shots. You got to give the credits to the Bogdanoviches, the John Collins, the Kevin Huerters. You got to give a lot of credit to those guys for making those shots. And DeAndre Hunter did not play in this game, so hopefully he gets healthy so he can make an impact on this series too. I think he's going to be a big-time asset to this team because he's been so good in this postseason. But I think Philly, they were able to make a run to make the game interesting late. The Hawks almost blew it. Then Bogdanovic hit a big 3 to kind of close the game. But I think Doc Rivers should be able to see the adjustments that they have to make on the defensive side that can, get them this game to win. If I'm Philly, I wouldn't be panicking. That's kind of how I see this game. Great win for the Hawks though, because they go into Philly game 1. This is a game that you could easily concede to the top seed, but they went in there, they punched Philly in the mouth. You got to give a lot of credit where it's due. I want to see if Ben Simmons gets that Trae Young assignment the entire game next time. Let's see how that goes, because you can't let Trae Young come out and kill you in the first half, because he's a player that he can do that anytime he really wants to if he's given those opportunities. And you got to make it as difficult as you can on him. And I think Ben Simmons is obviously your best option. That's my defensive player of the year. I think that's your best option on Trae Young. So hopefully we get to see that matchup. Embiid was pretty much unstoppable in this game. Even on a bad knee, he was pretty much unstoppable. He had 39. Clint Capella's been great, but he can't do anything with Embiid. So I think Philly should be able to make the right adjustments to win game 2. But this should be a fun series. I think all these second round series should be fun. So I'm excited for him. I'm gonna be here to talk about him with y'all. So if you enjoy that, make sure you hit the subscribe button, leave a like. That helps the channel out a lot. And I'll be back next time, y'all, with another one. Peace.